I like it. I like it. I like it. Oh man, look, I'm at the home setup today. I really wanted to kind of deep dive and give this some time, bro. I was like, you know what? I could rush in there and we could try and put something together, but we might lose like the extra 10 or 15 minutes that we need to definitely deep dive into several different topics here. Had the opportunity to go to the Pistons pre-summer league media session. Shout out to the rest of the beat that was there. They continue to make me feel very, very comfortable. And my partner in crime at these press conferences is always Mike Curtis. It's always a seat that he's saving. Shout out to him, man. Like for real. These things, they make differences. Bro, before we open up, I gotta tell you, like, when I walked in there, I thought it was so funny. I was like, man, this is the weirdest press conference. There's literally no desk up front. Like we're in like the small media room and the court's blocked off. I'm just totally clueless. And then they're like, all right, it's going to start. So I turn on my stuff. I'm sitting there like, are they going to like stand up? All the media gets up and walks out the back door. And they're like, bro, are you coming? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, it's a media session. It's like, what? It's I walk out the room like, oh, okay. So we're doing it in the big press conference area. Okay. They're like, no, bro, they're practicing.
Yep.
That was my first one, man. I didn't know.
That's the daily deal. Is that it's herding cattle. You're up there and you're waiting for them to finish practice, and then you just roll down. Everybody, the whole herd rolls down, and then you just sit there and you wait to talk to people. So I mean, that's good to experience that, because it is. I've spent many a day in that practice room, in that media room, waiting to be able to actually do something that mattered.
Yeah, and it was cool. It was a cool experience. But look, let's get into it, because I want to talk about this team, talk about what they have. I know that you're ready to get going. So look, what up, though, people? It is your boy Brandon Dent, a.k.a. Detroit Kool-Aid, and you're rocking out with the Woodward Pistons podcast on Woodward Sports Network. Obviously, Mr. Jeff Iafredi is on the Morning Woodward show, and we have actually some cool things planned this week. I might actually jump on the show this week as well, so stay tuned. But you guys already know it's that drum roll time for the legends, so let's get it going. Hey, yo! Shout out to the legend, and welcome to Detroit News, Rod Beard. Brother, how's it going?
Brother, it is good. It is a Wednesday. That's how I know I'm midweek. This is the tipping point. This gets me through it.
Yeah, man, I'm fired up. I was already fired up just seeing Pistons Twitter, seeing a lot of different observers, just kind of all over the spectrum. You know, it wasn't just kind of one concentration, but there is one voice that kind of is swelling a little bit louder than others. And I know we're going to get into it, but then you got me fired up. Kind of like before we went live and everything, before we started the recording, it was just like, yo, let's get it going. Because I wanted to start in one place with the media session, but I think we can get there. We can talk about that. That's more conversational. Let's dive into this actual Detroit Pistons team, this roster, what they actually have. Because I thought we were saying this when we were sick for Vic, you know. We were saying that he will definitely accelerate things, but that the core of this rebuild was already on this squad. These were kind of some of the notions we were kicking around, that, yeah, he will come in right away. But if they can get somebody that can augment or put around the guys that they already have here, that, you know what, they might not win as much as we would want them to right away, but at least for the foundation of this restore and for where this team could be long-term, especially with what the new CBA, I believe, is going to do to teams, the Pistons are going to be in a good position either way, with or without Wemby. Now it seems like, 17 wins, take away all the context, take away all of the injuries, take away, we lost a guy who we're going to get into a little bit later. Other people are starting to call a star. Other people are trying to get ahead of the storm now and say, hey, this guy's pretty good. It's like you take away all of that, and now people without that number 1, number 2, number 3 pick, drafting Asar Thompson out of the overtime elite, people are just kind of in shambles. Rod, I just kind of want your quick thoughts on it, man, before we kind of get into some of these players, because there's some interesting stats there about the guys on this team.
No, I think I'm a little bit disappointed. I won't even say disappointed. I'll say surprised that they didn't push all the chips in the middle of the table and say, we're going to get Cam Johnson or we're going to get Harrison Barnes. But if you saw what those numbers were, that you can kind of see why they didn't do it. That you were going to have to go 4 and probably 115, 120 to get Cam, even if you didn't do the Joe Harris thing. So you could put Brooklyn in a bind, but I think they end up going and matching whatever. And we talked about with restricted free agents, if you tie your money up, you can't do anything else. You're hamstrung at the beginning of free agency if you say, we're going to get Cam. And they probably had some other irons in the fire and looking at some other options there. But you can't strategically just say, Cam is our guy. That's the only thing we're going to do. And maybe Brooklyn kind of approached them and said, well, hey, what about Joe Harris? And you look and say, three-point shooter, elite three-point shooter, not even just a three-point shooter, elite three-point shooter. What is he, 43% for his career? You don't need a guy like that on your bench somewhere? Okay, cool. But
talk about it, man.
I just don't think that it's about throwing all the chips in the middle of the table and the rebuild. I thought they would go in and try to make a big fish, but you see what Jeremy Grant got. Were you throwing a bag like that at Jeremy Grant?
Boy, listen, we talked about it on the show, and I was like, I like Jeremy Grant, but when you get up to some of these astronomical numbers like that, it's like, man, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Yeah, we were discussing it on From Half Court, the content that's gonna drop, I think, about an hour before our show, and it was about the fact that the Pistons were rumored to be targeting Cam Johnson, Jeremy Grant, and others. Those people that got targeted got more money than the rumors were. Remember the pre-rumors?
Exactly.
Oh, the Nets are willing to go to this amount. Well, they went over that amount. Jeremy Grant's going to get this amount. They went over that amount. Like, I wouldn't be surprised or shocked if like news came out, because they kept saying it. The Pistons are interested in these guys. They're willing to do this and do that. The Nets had to pay to keep those guys. It wasn't just, oh, we're re-signing them based on value. I believe that both Jeremy Grant and Cam Johnson, based on the interest from Pistons and others, got a little bit more money, and it does make it a lot more tough when you know how many of these wings are out there, man. It is not a lot. It's not a lot. So if you got a Jeremy Grant, you kind of lock that up, and you know what? You realize you got an asset whose contract you hope in about 2 years is still holding some type of a good trade value. I don't know which way the Blazers are going to kind of lean into this rebuild thing. Shout out to Dame Lillard being a good guy, helping JG get that bag before all of this
trade went crazy. We all need friends like that. Can we all just have friends like that, please?
I mean, like, man, shout out to Jeremy Grant, man. Shout out to Jeremy Grant. Troy Weaver thought he could be exactly what Portland is paying him to be right now. So shout out to him. And you know what, man? I get how special these wings can be. And we sat here, we talked about it. And I've had to kind of break this down for people. It's kind of like a couple hats here where we report what Troy's saying. We did a whole episode where we started with saying Troy is saying now they got to start time saying he's not so sure he's going to make a splash. He doesn't know if he wants to sign somebody that could potentially block these guys and whatnot. Even though we continue to state, hey, Jeremy Grant, Cam Johnson, I would love to see him go and punch this bag right now for one of these guys that we thought could come in and fill that wing position right away and mesh a little bit better. If it's Cam Johnson, a little bit younger. If it's Jeremy Grant, 29, couple years older, but he's that vet that can play still. That's what we wanted. That's what I was hoping and looking for. But when I continue to say, like, trust in Troy, and I continue to get absorbed into the highlights and the clips, like I just need to see Asar Thompson in Summer League. I'm like, you know what? There's I think there's something here that we're missing. I really do. I really do. We had so much hope and hype coming into this season, right? After we picked Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, after we got Bojan, we're like, oh, man, this is all Cade needed, bro. Oh, my goodness, Alec Burks. That was 4 whole players added to a squad that we thought underperformed that, the season before in Cade's rookie year. So that's me. I continue to reset this thing when I look up and down this roster and I say, you know what? That 30 wins that we thought, I think that at minimum needs to be something that they're pushing for, an expectation. even more so, I want to see this squad really, really, really make it a goal to push for the play-in. Now, look, because I know that their draft capital, and some other things, it's a little bit tied up as you kind of go forward. That doesn't really worry me that much. I mean, Troy has picked 4 lottery picks in the last 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Like he continues, and even more so if we want to just talk about first round picks. I forget what the number is, but he had 3 first round picks his first year, 2 last year, 2 this year, 1. So what? 2, 8, 7, 8,
9.
Yeah.
No. Cade and who? Cade was 1.
Well, Livers, I want to consider Livers a first round pick, but he was early second.
Yeah, early, mid second. I want to say it's like 41 or something like that. So
that's a steal.
People are going to say that this is a slow play, but we can pull tape from last year and say what we thought Jalen Duren would be. But you know what you got to do? You got to wait and see. You got to play him and figure it out. We didn't really know. We thought we kind of knew what Jalen Duren would, or not Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey would be. It turned out to be something a little bit different than what we thought going in. We didn't know if Cade had the explosiveness to finish and to kind of be effective in the league. Had to wait and see. So we didn't know if Isaiah Stewart would be able to be a perimeter player. You gave him a year to work on it. He shot 32, 33% from 3. Not taking down the house, but that's good. That's a good start.
Yeah, some big stretches as well.
Right. So it's there, but you got to see. You can't just say this guy is this, and then that's it. And then just move on and pigeonhole a guy and say he's going to be this. The only person you can do that with probably is Joe Harris, because he is what he is. You read the label. This is what this dude is. Okay, that's all the ingredients. 3-point shooter. Boom. Okay, I know what I got.
All right, put him right where he is going to get the best. I'm glad that you mentioned Isaiah Stewart, because I was on NBA University. It's a social media site that I'm quickly becoming I've been a fan of for a long time, but just I like to peruse it, not just for Pistons players, but just for the love of the game, man. There's a lot of skill, a lot of talent. And one of the things that I saw here was shout out at NBA_University on Twitter. Crafted plus minus is an aggregate of many different all-in-one impact metrics, highest rated players who are 22 and under from this previous season. And they got the top 8 guys here, man. And it sucks. You know, you got Halliburton, Mobley, Edwards, LaMelo Ball, Wagner, Barnes, Sengun, McDaniels, right? You know, to see Halliburton number 1 on that list is just like, sheesh. But this is where it gets interesting. I was like, okay, whatever. I was going to just skip over it, but I don't know, man. Something told me check the comments, read the comments. They put next on the list in order: Cole Anthony, Jalen Johnson, Okongwu, KPJ, Grimes, Odama, Denny, Vassell, Taylor Horton Tucker, Okoro, Josh Green, Isaiah Stewart. That was really, really, really interesting to me. I was like, Isaiah Stewart, top 20, 30 player in this league. When you're talking about young players, when we're talking about all-in-one impact. And I was looking at the guys that were around him too. Because some will say, well, you would probably want these guys to be top 10 if they're 22 and under and you're taking that. Let me tell you the guys behind him on this list, man. Josh Giddey, Bones Highland, Isaiah Jackson, Jalen Smith, Jalen Green, Kuminga, RJ Barrett, Trey Mann. Think about that. And it says that these are 32 players, 22 years old and under, who played 1,000 minutes this season, at least. You're talking about guys who make an all-in-one impact. That's Isaiah Stewart. I don't believe that Isaiah Stewart is a guy who has to take a huge leap forward. I think just like you said, we got to see what he is. There was a point in time where his 3-point shooting, and man, forgive me for not having the numbers. I have it somewhere. I did an actual article on it. and he was shooting a decent 36-37% from three
Exactly.
on high volumes. He was
Mhm.
shooting like 5-6 threes a game, and he was hitting that for a good stretch until that shoulder injury. He wasn't going to talk about it until the media continued to press him about it. He's like, I mean, look, I don't like the excuses. I want to be able to hit those regardless. I could still shoot. I was still out there, so I'm not going to talk about it. But there was a noticeable difference between his three-point shooting after that dip. So, those things matter. So, and look, when it was clicking, right? Let's start with the beginning of the season. They won that first game exactly due to the reason why I think he's working at this and why the Pistons kind of saw something. And I posted a clip this morning too. Cade Cunningham just gets people wide open. And when you're looking at the guys that they're going to leave open on that team, obviously Duren's going to be in the paint. Stewart, if he starts, is going to be the guy that they're going to have to leave open when Cade helps. And I keep seeing that. Even when Cade went out, Stewart was the guy they kept helping off of. They did that against the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic did that against the Pistons in the first game of the season, and Stu hit a big three. He did that 2 or 3 games last season, 2 or 3 times where he hit a big three just because he was capable. You know what I mean? So if he takes this kind of marginal step forward, just marginal in my opinion, on the three-point side, I believe that the defense and the rebounding, as he has Duren there and he can play in those kind of 2 big sets rather than being the only big, I believe that we're going to see a much better Stewart, which is what we saw when he got to play in those 2 big lineups. And we just didn't get to see these guys play. Defensively is another thing. People that I keep talking to, at least around the media, some other observers, I've talked to some other people who kind of know Monty, who are familiar with him. They're like, don't underestimate or underrate his impact he will have on the Pistons defense as well. So I don't know. When you hear something like this list here, and we're talking about what the highest rated players who are 22 and under this season, and you hear that Stu is kind of sitting at about 20 to 25 on that list. What are your thoughts on that? Because he's the player that I believe a lot of Pistons fans are kind of, I don't know, like kind of split on the most. I don't know if he's long to be starting or not. I think that that's something he will definitely prove this year, but I still feel like he's one of the most important pieces on this Pistons roster right now.
He's your heart and soul guy. He's your.
And he's
if it were hockey, I would say he's your enforcer. He's ready to knuck if you buck. He's ready to go. And I think there's something about that work ethic that he exemplifies the work ethic. He's not maybe supremely talented, but he works hard. And he's going to get you a bucket. He's going to do something. And I think you need guys like that to have, just to say, all right, when we get in the weight room, you got to do a couple more reps. You got to get this one up. So when you look at the market and you look at, is he getting an extension? I think he gets an extension coming up because he means he is that. And I think you've always got to have something to show for that draft. So if you don't have Sadiq and you don't have Killian,
that's a great point.
Then you want to have something that said, okay, here's one of the last vestiges of that era when we first started out. Then I think that's your answer is he's that. I think his ceiling can be kind of a Bam Adebayo type player, maybe not quite as athletic and kind of physical, the same sort of way that Bam is, because I don't think he's that tall, but I think he does a lot for you. I think you extend him, and I think you make him one of the centerpieces of this franchise moving forward. And I think it's just there's so much more to be seen, because even what we've seen, and we talked about this last week, I believe, we haven't seen Cade Duren minutes. We don't know what that looks like. We have no idea what that looks like. We haven't seen Cade Boyan a ton, enough to say, okay, this isn't going to work. This whole starting 5, I think that's why there's not this rush to break up this roster, because this could work. You don't know if Cam Johnson is going to work. And again, there were concerns I heard from non-Pistons people about Cam Johnson and the concern about his knee, and that at his age, how much NBA tread he would have, that maybe he wouldn't be a 10-year NBA guy. So are you willing to blow the entire bag on somebody that you're not completely sure about?
Yeah.
And so that's the thing for me. If you're going out and you're getting, let's say if you're getting Devin Booker, yes, throw the entire bag. Just caution to the wind. We know what Devin Booker is, and we know that there are no injury issues that we've got to worry about, no significant ones like that. But if in the draft those were Cam Johnson's kind of flags that you were looking at, then what's changed up to this point? There's nothing that says, okay, we're not going to be concerned about these things because the numbers make us believe that this is going to be something different. No, it's the same thing. Injuries are injuries. Zion had injuries, and what's the red flag right now? It's the same thing. Some people are injury prone.
Yeah.
And I'm not bagging on Cam Johnson, but I'm reiterating something that
being real. We got to talk about it. I get it.
This is something that I heard before that draft. Because I think the last mock that I did was Cam Johnson. I'm like, that's that dude right there. that dude, you put him on this roster and we're cooking with grease. Was that the Sekou draft? Cam Johnson was the Sekou draft, wasn't he? I believe he was a Sekou draft. And I'm like,
yeah, his contract is this year.
Yeah. That was 19. So I'm like, yeah, that makes more sense to me than anything else. And sure enough, Cam is gone. Cam was off the board at 11. So, I mean, that was the thought. I liked his skill set, but that's just stuff that sometimes you don't know about is kind of other red flags or what goes on at the combine, what goes on in those player interviews that makes you say, because and look at Cam Whitmore this year. We are all like, take him at 5. If he's there, he might not even be there at 5. Maybe somebody likes Cam Whitmore at 4. And he ends up being gone. So how does he have that precipitous drop that he had? Well, there's something else that we don't know about. So as much as we want to say, even us kind of media people and people who are in the know, we know a lot, but we're not in those interviews. We're not in the front office war rooms that say, yeah, this dude has all of these measurables. This dude has this. However, are we spending a pick on him, or in free agency, are we throwing a bag at him when we have red flags and we've had red flags since the draft? No.
You're right.
So, and so that's the Cam Johnson piece. Maybe that is why they went after him. Maybe they just said, hey, we'll leave him alone if you give us Joe Harris. And you're helping them to bring back the guy that they want that you really don't want. So give us Joe Harris, and that'll help us a little bit more. Maybe that was the conversation that.
Yeah. You're on mute. You're on mute. Hold on. Ooh. It said something happened with the mic.
There we go. So you gave up nothing, and you got an elite level 3-point shooter, and you got a nice backup point guard in Monty. So your offseason haul so far, you got Joe Harris, you got Monty, you got Sasser, you got Austin, and you gave up nothing. You actually got some second round picks back. So did you win free agency? No, you're not in that position. You're not going to do that. Are you a better team than you were? Yeah, you are. You are, because now you're positioned, even if you're moving Killian somehow, you have Sasser and you have Monty. And Monty's probably starting over Killian anyway. Or not starting, but backup over Killian.
I'm looking at the 3-point percentage as well, 38%, 39%, 39.5%, and then 38% for Monty Morris the last 3 seasons. Yeah, they got better. And I posted something about that, and I even rapped about it on From Half Court, and I thought my thinking is that Killian has about a half a season to prove something. I believe he's still valuable to this squad, and I would be still a little bit bullish on his opportunities, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a move. Like, yeah, like you stated, Morris and Sasser are more than insurance. I think that they're the type of players that we've been stating we kind of want to see Killian kind of take a bite out of that apple, kind of have a little bit of that dog, a little bit of that grit, a little bit of that fearlessness to the rack, a little bit of that knowing you're the guy, because Killian has all the intangibles. We've seen him put it together during great stretches. But like the coaches have also said, there's something that's going on up here. And I'm hoping that these shooters and this extra talent, if he gets an opportunity to play this season, I'm hoping he just lets loose, bro. Just play. Play, make, get out there, know that you're passing to NBA shooters. And this is where ultimately I believe is going to help Cade Cunningham a whole lot. Like, bro, they added three. Let's just call it three. Marcus Sasser is a good 3-point shooter. He's a really good 3-point shooter. We like, obviously we're gonna wait and see what's going on with Asar Thompson. But if Marcus Sasser is even getting time, if they have different lineups, it's just like they added a lot of shooting. I don't think people understand how much they did. And the reason why I'm kind of harping on that is because the guys that they added also, they have low usage rates. None of these guys need the ball in their hand. They just like Joe Harris is literally what we want Bojan to be. And I saw a stat on Bojan too. I'm gonna talk about his catch and shoot actually surprised me. Even though I know he likes to have the ball and he likes to dribble and ISO, he's just he's so lethal from the catch and shoot, man. It's crazy. But Joe Harris too, he don't need to do anything. He can just sit there and just, I'm shooting. And that's it. The type of gravity that Cade Cunningham draws, man. Shout out Kuka Hill. And I think KPJ Pistons, I forget the exact but they posted this clip of Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, like all of the clips of them working together, the assists from Cade to Ivey. Man, I posted he is getting him Grand Canyon wide open, man. Like he is just getting Ivey all types of looks wide open from three, wide open in the mid-range, wide open layups. All the stuff we were saying we wanted to see, like Ivy cutting back door and then boom, boom, boom. I guess you got to have a playmaker that can make those types of passes. That's maybe what I missed. You know, shout out Dwayne Casey. Your playmaker went down. He went down. Like we thought Kill was going to step up. And maybe this is why you go and you shore up that point guard. Because when you got those guys that can go out there and do that, man, it makes a world of a difference when you have athletes like now, Asar Thompson, Ivy, and Duren. Come on, man. Come on. And if Ivy and Duren didn't put on tape what they did last year in the rookie seasons, where Ivy proved to me, look, I know y'all like Cade Cunningham out here, but I can hoop too.
But so it's like this. You go out to a good restaurant and you order. It's kind of you tell people order what you want. And people go and they give me a steak, give me some crab legs, give me this, give me this, give me that. That's not the situation the Pistons are in right now. They're not at crab legs and steak level. That's not where they are. They're at like, give me a baked potato and some veggies and like a chicken breast. They have to be nutritionally right and just. They're not at a point where they can take a swing at somebody and miss. Mm-hmm. Was there a chance that Cam Johnson was going to be a swing and a miss? He's not your number one option. Harrison Barnes wouldn't have been nobody that they were going to get.
Thank you for bringing up this nuance, because that was the one thing I kept trying to, I was sitting here like, wait a second. They're going to pay a guy $30 million a year to be the fourth or fifth option?
Cade is already established as your guy. You're not going to, like I said, you're not going to get Devin Booker. You're not in the bring me the crab legs, bring me a whole pot of crab legs. You're not there. You can't do that yet. And so now you see what sort of, look at what Houston is doing. Houston and the Pistons, you would say last year, kind of at the same position in their rebuild.
Yep.
Houston is going out and saying, bring me a Wagyu steak and bring me Fred VanVleet because we're ready to go. We're ready to go right now.
Boy, they went full on, didn't they?
So if they think they're going for it, Maybe.
And you know what? They don't believe in that locker room. You know, Troy, you know, these guys, they said that they would put this locker room up against any other. To see kind of what they had to do to augment, that was so much. That to me says that that locker room needed culture out there in Houston. They needed leaders, they needed culture. Whereas our room, when we hear Troy say things like, I want serious basketball players in my room, quote, that's a quote. I draft serious ballers. This is what we want. We're going to draft players like that. And then you hear Asar Thompson and Marcus Hasser speak, and then Cade Cunningham, you will start to wonder, oh, that's why they carry themselves this way. That's why all they're doing is just in the gym hooping. That's why they're carrying themselves a certain way in the community. That's why they're doing the things that they're doing. And we don't hear the reports. We don't see them pouting. We don't see them fighting. We don't see them yelling at the coach. We don't see any of this stuff. We see this stuff out of the guys in the Houston Rockets room. They needed somebody who can come in and honestly dominate from a persona or personality standpoint so that they can have this culture that the Pistons have been building from day one. They got their connector, and they stated this is a specific culture that we want that's going to be tied back to previous winners. So we can restore. We have a blueprint. And that is so key, because otherwise you got guys coming in saying, oh, it's my way. It's my way. It's my way. It's my way, to the point that Houston had to go and get a guy in Dylan Brooks, who is that guy. But at least you know he's going to probably give you greatness on the defensive end. At least he's going to go out there and try and be a decent three-point shooter for you and be a guy worthy of that, $20 million a year. That to me just speaks to the fact that I believe Troy, when he says we need to see what we have first, well, the Houston Rockets have gotten an opportunity to see what they have. Their guys have played, and now they know that their guys might not be the connectors. Their guys might not be the straw that stirs the drink. If you're paying FVV that much money to come in to be the point guard, you're saying he's now the straw that stirs the drink, even if you believe in Jalen Green. But the Pistons are stating and openly stating, well, this is Cade's team. We literally traded a guy who just got a super bag because we said this is Cade's team. And everybody that we're bringing in is about Cade. Even to the point that Bojan said, it's about Cade. We believe in this guy. It is as if the whole world is like, so you're going to give Cam Johnson the bag? It's just like he just said he believes in Cade Cunningham. All the signs are pointing towards, let's see what him and Ivy can do. Because a little bit that they did, man, these dudes you want to see them win, but they look good together, man.
Hey, give me all of the Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks content I can have. Just give me all of that content. I'm so serious. I'm just saying. Give me all of that. Just put a video camera and follow them around everywhere. I just want to see what that looks like.
Oh man, you're not lying. You're not lying, man.
Give me all of that content and give me a Fred VanVleet diary after like 2 months of like, hey man.
Listen, because I love Steven Silas, man. I know like that family, they love basketball. I got opportunity to be around that culture, like out on the East Coast and everything. And to see him like literally like crying about it was just like, man, dog, what is going on in that locker room? Like, what is going on? I'm with you, bro.
I need an NBA Hard Knocks version, and I need them to go directly to Houston. Let us see
right now
what they're doing, because I'm intrigued. And seriously, I'm intrigued to see if Fred can go there and really be the anchor that they need him to be. Because last year, who was their guy? Who was the one that was the glue that was holding that together? Was it Jalen Green? I don't know. So I think they're following the model that we talked about, is get your young guys together, go get a vet and bring it in to kind of make it all make sense and make them better. So I think that's what they're trying to do. I just don't think it's
like they know what they need, but I think they just struck the iron a little too soon. They should have just gone and gotten some shooters to put around their young playmakers, like I believe the Pistons are doing, and just wait till you get the right star to actually cash that bag with, man. This one is different. You know, when I look at what Troy's doing, these are the types of savvy moves. people look at the Monty Morris deal and they say, "Oh, he's only 10-5. He averaging the same thing that Killian is." Well, no, he's shooting a lot better. 38% versus like the 20% that Killian was shooting down the stretch to close the season. And I'm a Killian, like I want to see him do good, but it's just true. You know what the biggest thing I've noticed with Troy? Since I heard them start talking about the fact that Sadiq Bey needs high usage, I've started noticing the Pistons move away from high usage players, bro. Monty Morris, 15% usage last season. Killian Hayes, 20.5% usage.
Get the ball to the people who need the ball. That's
Yeah.
what but who are you putting him with? So let's think about this. Who are you putting your distributor with? And give me some Monty Morris stats. How many assists last year?
Yeah, let me go back to his stats. Killian was at 6.2, but he had 20% usage. Monty Morris was, I believe, at 5.3.
Yep. Yeah, 5. So I'll take a little dip in assists to give me the 38% from 3 that he is a threat to do something else. But here's the other piece. Who did you put him with on that second unit? Alec Burks, Joe Harris. Get that man some people in the corners.
If Sasser plays with him, Sasser is like, I am training to be an off ball to take the pressure off the lead guard.
Get that man some options in the corners, and get that man somebody who can run pick and roll with him.
Yeah.
And Monty Morris is going to look a lot different than Kojo. Absolutely love Kojo. But Monty Morris, I think, can be a difference maker on this team because the path that they had chosen was more of the let's get an older 8 to 10 year vet as our point guard, our third point guard.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're moving to, hey, here's a backup guy who's going to be really, really good. And that third point guard is a young guy that's going to learn.
Remember what I've been saying? I believe that for the Pistons in this next phase forward, I don't believe that Killian's a bad player, but I believe that for his long-term fit here on the Pistons, just so people understand the context, with what Troy's doing, if Killian doesn't take significant steps forward and he's looking for some type of deal that is not commensurate of his talent, then you have to move on. Trade him if there's a team that give you some type of draft capital or a shot at seeing what another young player is like. But if he can play that Kojo role long-term on a decent deal and prove to be something – something better than what he's proven to be, at least field goal and three-point shooting percentage, I wouldn't mind it. But obviously, we've been saying for the last, year and a half that there are decisions that's going to start being made now. And that's something that we've seen Troy do. When Sadiq Bey got traded, you already understand from that first draft class, all bets are off. Come in here and work. And we talked about the fact that last season, Troy cleared the deck for Killian, gave him the picked up the option early, traded really anybody of competition. Didn't bring anybody in that was going to really, really, really compete with him at that backup point guard spot. This season, not so much the case. So Killian's going to have to come in with a complete different mindset and do and work in this. Out of all the guards they have right now, if you unlock Killian, I like him, man. I like him. I like Monty Morris, but that's his ceiling. And that's the frustrating part about Killian. It's like, bro, man, Killian, that was your floor. You had an awful season, bro. Get it together, man. Because I know they got to be sitting there like, oh my gosh, like the people who are looking at film have to just from my standpoint, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's right there, Killian. Take that little guard off the dribble. Like, just take him to the rack. But let me talk about one guy that has it together before we kind of bring this thing to a close, the Cade Zone, man. I told people we would talk about this on the pod at NBA_University. They put out a big post because obviously a lot of the stats that they're posting about last season aren't going to include Cade Cunningham because of the 12 games. But they went on and they made, I guess, the necessity to kind of give him his own post. It said, Cade Cunningham has sweet defensive tape. This is something we've been saying for a long time, Rod, that his defense is underrated. The Pistons have missed it. People say, they weren't winning. They didn't have the talent. You add it with what they got going on right now. There's a lot of length on their defense within the projected starting lineup. But they say active hands, a good helper, but most impressively, he's a KBIF, keep ball in front star. Doesn't over-rely on help. He doesn't need the double teams. Instead, sticks his man and makes them work. Here's him locking on ball against Steph, SGA, Trey, Hallie, DJM, etc. And they have like him literally going to work defensively against these people, man. Like we keep talking about the type of connector he is offensively. From a defensive standpoint, and you're bringing in guys who you're saying like Asar and Marcus Sasser, who are like, no, we want to guard the best players. We want to guard the best. But you have guys now who are actually coming in and saying that. That makes your defense better if Cade doesn't have to go out there and defend the lead guard or find himself defending Evan Mobley, find himself defending the wings who are starting to get hot. Now, you know what I'm saying? Like having him back is going to add so much more to the Pistons than what I think people actually are giving credit for. They did continue to go through sand, though I did come away a bit underwhelmed with some offensive tape, particularly from this season. I know he was battling injury. His manipulation of the defense was good, not great, and I felt his size was often underutilized and didn't make up for his lack of elite first step. But then they came back with this caveat. That being said, the Detroit roster wasn't exactly conducive to excellent offensive production. There is a lot of room for improvement in craft/foul drawing, and his shot starting to fall at a higher clip. I believe it will. It will unlock a ton more opportunity for him offensively. I think that kind of sums him up. I think it's the reason why you see the most improved betting favorites on FanDuel, Cade Cunningham coming in at second, right behind, Mikal Bridges. Cade Cunningham is somebody that's now starting to get a whole lot of attention from people. And I think it stems a little bit from, you get the AI generated fat Cade, shout out to that. That took over the internet. But then you get the clips of you got Ashton who's continuing to say, no, he's looking like a monster. He's looking like a monster. And people are like, where are the clips at? Then you get to the media session yesterday or a couple days ago. And bro, he's not missing. He's not missing. I know it's his practice, but you see the other guys, they shoot, make, miss. K was Pleasantville, man. He wasn't missing anything. And he was doing like the patented moves, the shiftiness, the sauciness, the get dribble in and out around the trainers and such, and swish, just boom, boom, boom. And the thing that I was looking for is on that, repaired leg, could he do his push off and back that he does? He does a mean step back off that leg. He was doing it. He was doing it, man. Like, I don't want to say he's back. Obviously, Troy told us that, he's going to be ramping things up over the next couple of weeks. He will be ready to go for training camp. But he looks good, man. He looked really good. It's awesome to see other people who kind of study the game, like NBA University, starting to really, really peer into the type of player that Cade Cunningham can be as he's getting closer and closer and closer to hopefully his first full season with a talented roster around him. I just want your thoughts on Cade Cunningham before I kind of get into that media session a little bit more.
All right. And I'll make this quick.
Yeah.
We talked about the Cade and Jalen Duren offensively. You got a rim protector behind you now. And if you're a keep the ball in front guy, now you can gamble a little bit more because you got a rim protector behind you. That's it. I'm going to leave it at that.
I like that, man.
I'm just leaving it at that.
Just some bullet points on the media session. I like the presence of Asar Thompson and Marcus Sasser. Both guys who you would consider serious ball players. Asar Thompson, very humble in demeanor, but very, very confident. Very, very confident in his speech. You ask him about his game, he's like, yeah. And
I can do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, the thing that I'm hearing is that, and you kind of see it a little bit, obviously the athleticism. Everybody from James Wiseman to Marcus Sasser, they're like, yo, his athleticism is unreal. Jared Jack, we got to talk to him as well. He'll be the Summer League head coach. Everybody is talking about his athleticism. I'm hoping it's on display for the Pistons because similar to Jalen Duren, I'm hoping that there's a triage that Asar Thompson can kind of, hit, his athleticism. How well is that going to work for the Pistons? His speed in transition and in half court. That's something that Troy is saying, that his speed, he can utilize that all over the court, in space as well as out of space, and then defensively. This is the thing that I heard him talk about, whether he was asked about it or not. He continued to say, I want to defend. I want to defend. I want to defend. This is where it is, guys, heads at. I want to come in here and be a difference maker day one. I think he might know that his defense might be a little ahead of his offensive game.
Mhm.
But he also mentioned wanting to play make as well and set up his teammates. So I like him. I obviously we hope he does well. He was a person that we said if the Pistons take a shot at potential, that was kind of the guy we were like, well, we hope it's Asar Thompson. That's going to be the guy available to them. So it's going to be interesting to see with Marcus Sasser in particular. He's the guy who you saw the clips going around, and I got to ask him this question at the presser about it, about him saying, I think it's going to be Detroit, man. I think it's going to be Detroit. And I asked him, like, what was behind that? And was that kind of the team? Was it the only team, you want to pick you? He was like, man, I was trying to speak it into existence. I really wanted to be here. He talked about the staff as well, being one that he has some familiarity with. And we talk about how that's such a key thing. Troy and Monty and these people now, and Dwayne, who have these kind of connections all throughout the AAU and college basketball world, man. That's so crucial that we're starting to build what I believe basketball culture-wise in the front office. I think we're starting to put together something that is very reminiscent of Miami and Boston. Strong front offices with connections and ties and good relationships with the players, with the people that you ultimately are going to have to rely on to go out there and win you some games. And I absolutely love it.
Man, come on, Brandon. You know how our viewers are. They don't care about that. They want to win. You can have if you ain't winning, you can have the nicest people in the world. And so I think that's you're making a valid point, because when you pick up the phone in free agency or the draft to make a trade, you want to understand and make sure that you're dealing with somebody who's going to make you a decent deal, not just waste your time, but and they're solid people. And sometimes let's say in Dame's situation where he's trying to go to Miami, and the Portland front office doesn't have to do him any favors, but they would be doing him a solid by sending him where he wants to go. And there was this thing about, well, they're keeping an eye on what goes on with that, of players are watching how Portland handles this situation. The way your front office behaves in certain situations is kind of that people look at that. Yep. And it might not, it's not just here's a warm weather city, here's a big city, here's a thing where I can get endorsements. It's sort of, what kind of environment am I going into? What type of person is Troy to deal with? Because it's not just the contracts. It's when you go and work for a new company, what is your boss like? What is your department like? How are you dealing with people? And sometimes that makes the difference for people between going here or going there. Is, hey, the money might be a little bit less, but I don't have to deal with this BS and dealing with this other front office and dealing with these people, because I know it's kind of shady. And that was the thing. People used to talk about Sacramento a few years ago, was that there was some kind of shady stuff going on with the front office. So if you're a front office that doesn't have a good rep, the players know it. Players talk about that stuff in the locker room. Is hey, this team or somebody told me this guy in this front office is kind of ooh. So that stuff does make a difference, and viewers may not say that it makes a difference at all. It's really about, for them, because they're fans. At the end of the day, are you winning games? And the Pistons aren't. It's no way to sugarcoat it. That's real, but you're building the pieces to say, look back at where you were when Troy got here. And with the way this roster was, the way the books were, and the way the talent level that you had, this wasn't a place that people were coming. You were having to pay Langston Galloway, John Lure, Boban. You were paying them extra to come here to play as free agents. So on one hand, Stan thought those were the answers, and those were going to be the final kind of pieces to what he wanted. But on the other hand, some of those were kind of overpays, because that's just the way the market was. And if you have a good system, and this is the other thing, what do people talk about with San Antonio all the time? We heard it 1,000 times with Wemby. He's going to a system that's going to treat him well. He's going to a front office and a culture that's the perfect situation for him, and a program. And that's what Troy is trying to build. And you might go through a couple of coaches. You might go through a few drafts where some things work and some things don't. But if he has enough time and he can put this together, that's what he's working toward, is building something like that. Building something with like Sam Presti has in OKC. That's a legit
It's just a
front
machine,
office.
bro. It's a machine.
It's a legit front office.
Yep.
And that's what you have to build toward if you're building from the ground up. And that's what he inherited, is that he's building from the ground up to get it to be the way he wants it to be.
Yep. Both in business and basketball culture wise, not just the business side of it. Because you're right. You want to have those nice guys that can handle the front office business aspect of it, acquisitions and all that type of stuff, drafts. But you also want to know that you have a basketball culture, and that too, more or less, with like Boston and Miami, their culture, like that Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra, that Brad Stevens, their basketball minds, and the fact that they don't just rely on, like some people say, oh, you just got nerds, or you got the scouts, or you just rely on your eye test. No, with what the Pistons are doing, even from Aaron Tellem, the great agent. They got guys that have eye talent. They have guys that know computers. They got guys that are looking at the film. It's like their basketball acumen, their room. They have older coaches, former coaches, college coaches, Hall of Fame. Like Casey's in the college Hall of Fame, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is within their basketball room. And then Troy Weaver, to hear these players talk about, oh yeah, I've known these guys for a long time. But you're like, you were just in high school like 3 years ago, because these guys are on the scene scouting. They're there, man. It's a completely different room, and they are consistently coming away with, not just as known as people doing their jobs, but as you alluded to, good people. Good people. And it's like, and ultimately, I think Troy said it best. And I think that this first half of the season is going to be what really dictates a lot. I don't think you go out there and get a guy like Joe Harris and Monty Morris just to say, well, they're expiring deals. I think that these are guys to try and help your young team win. We kept talking about they need more NBA guys. They need more NBA guys. They lost a lot of NBA talent. We talked about that, man. With Jeremy Grant and Kelly Olynyk and others that left last year's roster, that's a lot of NBA talent. NBA shooters, NBA scorers, NBA players that know how to draw the fouls, NBA players that understand the nuance of the game. Man, I remember when I first went to college basketball, right? Before I played a game, this was just the coach saying, hey, let's try out. Trying out like in that environment was completely different. Let's fast forward a month into it, though, once I started to get a little bit more comfortable, because basketball's basketball. You just got to learn the nuances. Different game, man. Completely different game. At that point in time, you're just playing basketball. So I want to see this team. Echo what Troy says, man. See what they have. You will know. And this was the thing he said. We will know what to do then. We will know exactly where to go and take the swing. Like, I believe Houston Rockets believed they needed a wing and they needed a guard. What do the Pistons know that they need? What if Cade and Ivy actually both average over 20 points a game next year? That's what I'm saying. Like, that's crazy numbers. That's what if Duren actually averages like 15 and 10, 16 and 10? What are we actually talking about at that point in time? Because we haven't talked about that. Because I believe Bojan, Joe Harris, and Monty Morris are still going to do what they do. Monty Morris, I don't know, man.
No, but Houston, they didn't have somebody who played 11 games and was gone. Jalen Green played more than that. He didn't have he didn't lose his season. So they don't have, and Jabari Smith didn't lose his season. So they don't have this what if mentality about next season. And we think it can be a little bit better with that. They're relying on internal growth the same sort of way, but it's not. We know that our guy can be a 27-7 guy because he showed it already.
There we go.
There's not this higher ceiling that, well, if Jalen Green had done this, he could be a 25, 8-8 type guy. There's not that, because he played enough games.
The guy that did it.
right. This is small sample size. You can't take a ton away from it, but you can at least say, based off the previous season and based off the start of last season, we know what he is, and that's that. So yeah, that's all I got for you.
Last word, bro. I think
that's all I got for you.
Well, look, man, this was honestly a good conversation. I think it was energetic. I'm hoping people got through their work hour pretty entertained and educated. There are some pretty interesting numbers there. Again, Cade Cunningham, the straw that stirs the drink. Isaiah Stewart, a little bit more to him than meets the eye. Obviously, there's some improvements they have to make, but let's give these guys the chance of internal growth. Let's give them some health. And one last nugget, James Wiseman and Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren looks a little bit taller. James Wiseman slimmed way down, man. I am very interested to see him play. These guys were hitting 3 after 3 after 3, but obviously it's just practice, so I ain't going to put the fans through that. They've seen that too much, man. Big men shooting threes. Andre Drummond, he broke the fans in that regard. So
we have sort of real basketball coming up in summer league. So we'll have something to talk about next week.
I'm gonna talk to you about that, man.
All right.
I'm gonna be so I'm actually pretty excited, man. I'm pretty excited. So it'll be fun. But let me get you drum rolled out of here and let's get this thing closed up. People, I am so glad that you guys stuck around today. Definitely, if you got to this point, like the video, subscribe if you haven't, share the video if you can, and honestly, in the comments, let me know any places that you disagree. If you think that the Pistons still need to go out there and make a splash, like I'm going to echo what Rod said last year, man. I'm not going to be surprised if they make a trade or two this season. And sure enough, last season, the Bojan trade happened just before the season, and the Sadiq Bey trade happened at the trade deadline, and that's the two there. Knowing that they have a couple players that they have to make some decisions on and seeing kind of the writing on the wall, it's going to be an interesting thing. But let's get ready for Summer League, NBA 2K4 Las Vegas Summer League. I can't wait. I'm excited. I'm ecstatic to see our rookies. I'm ecstatic to see Wiseman and these guys play. So let's get you drum rolled out of here, man. For Jeff Fire Freddy, Mr. Everything on the Morning Woodward Show. My name is Brandon Dent, a.k.a. Detroit Kool-Aid for the Woodward Pistons podcast. But let's get the drum roll going for the legend. Hey, yo! Shout out to the legend, Detroit News Rod Beard. Brother, as always, thank you. I'm grateful. And I'm always humble for your support, man.
All right. Appreciate it, bro.
Yes, sir. All right. Till next time, you all.